this dude called him a nigger. And he knocked him across the top of the bar and then stood up and said, "It's from now on out to you, it's Mr. Nigger."
Yeah. Good. Working. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with ours. Ooh, spiffy microphone.
Yours was having fits.
I know, it wasn't, like everything was working except for one thing.
Did you look and see if everything on hers is the same as ours?
Yeah, there's a switch over here that's different.
Yeah.
We got what different?
Yeah.
What is it?
That one.
I don't know. I just push buttons until it works. So.
Do you want to start or do you want us to?
I wasn't actually. I don't have anything. Like I thought since my group isn't really here that I could just kind of like sit in on it and kind of get an idea of like who you are.
Where your group at? Huh? Your group at?
What now? What now?
Huh?
He said, "Where's your group at?"
My group deserted me.
Excuse me, proper English. Where does your group happen to be?
Well,
I know it wasn't your day to watch
not
it.
here.
No.
One had a meeting, and then Phyllis, she's, I don't know how she's doing, but she doesn't seem to be, I think she's going to stay in for the evening, so. Yeah, she wasn't up for it, so.
Phyllis was wild in her day.
Was she?
Back when she was a young lady. She's a looker, too. She's still a looker.
She's pretty sassy.
She's still a looker. But you picture her 25 years ago.
But she's gorgeous now. So.
And she's older than I am, so. How old is Phyllis, by the way? Oh, no, she won't tell me.
Well, she was, no, she's like, I think she said 62, maybe 63.
She'd have to be, because she used to date Sonny Burks, and Sonny doesn't look his age, and I know Sonny's 63. But his father didn't look his age either. His father died. His father was 80-some years old. He didn't look a day over 50.
So, we were kind of wondering if you could tell us more about the gatherings in the park.
The gatherings in the park? Which gatherings?
Like when you talked about having barbecues at McCullough Park.
Now, when I was a kid, we didn't have barbecues in the park. My uncle barbecued in his backyard.
In Indy?
No, here.
Oh, okay.
In Muncie. But even today, to a degree, the parks are still a gathering place for blacks during the summer. I know Hegan Park, the Black Expo has the back to school. No, it's Summer Soul Fest, and what they do is they have vendors. They usually have a basketball tournament. Your vendors are food vendors, and then they're also what I want to say, vendors who, there are people there that sell CDs. You have clothing vendors. This past summer we I don't think we had that good a turnout as far as the clothing and the music vendors were concerned. It didn't seem like there was that many. There were basically no clothing vendors at all. But used to, back when I was a kid, especially on the 4th of July, they used to have the fireworks in McCullough Park on the river. Of course, they've since then moved them to Central High School, or behind Central High School. But that was a big thing. Then people would be lined up across the bridge, for those who couldn't actually get to the riverbank. Of course, I was blessed. My parents lived right downtown Muncie, not too far from here on Jefferson Street, right across from the public library, as a matter of fact. And I could go up on the roof of the apartment building and see the fireworks from there. But parks, and this historically throughout the United States, parks have been gathering places for blacks. Even though years and years ago, the blacks they were restricted to certain sections of the park. I know in McCullough Park they were restricted basically to the southeast side of the park. And then Hegan Park has basically been prohibited. It's been it's hard to say because I didn't go to Hegan Park that much as a child. McCullough Park, yeah. But as far as your blacks have a lot of blacks, and during warm weather, a lot of blacks like to cook out, barbecue, and I'm talking about with the old-fashioned brick pits rather than these barbecue grills you see today. You know, it was just something that they would do on the weekday. On the weekends, it would be nothing for a community to have families get together and they would barbecue and people they'd carry in dishes. I know my aunt and uncle, great aunt and uncle, during warm weather, my uncle was known for his barbecue. So a lot of times, the guys from Bell Telephone where he worked would buy the meat for him, and he would cook for them. And then I remember big wash tubs of beer and pop. You know, I can't as to why the blacks don't socialize as a group today. Different era, different time frame, different attitudes. Especially probably, I would say particularly people my age. You know, when I was younger, I loved to party. I loved to have parties. There was always drugs and alcohol involved. But my partying days, for me to go to a party, it's rare. And I very seldom go to parties where they drink. Even though being in the theater, I've been to a lot of parties in the theater, but now I pick and choose the parties I go to. And if it's parties where it's predominantly drinking, I just don't go. You know, a lot of people have asked me, well, does that bother you to drink? No, it doesn't bother me. It's just that I get there, and since I don't drink, after about 20 or 30 minutes, I have nothing in common with the drinkers there. Mm-hmm. You know, we have nothing to talk about, basically. The church has always been a foundation in the black community. It's always been a gathering place. Like I said, the blacks have social clubs. And Hurley Goodall and his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Reinhardt, all the older people that are a part of this project could tell you some of the names of the clubs. I mean, you know, the Debonair Club has been around ever since I can remember. There used to be a Black Masons group here in Muncie. There probably still is, but they're not there. As far as them being active, I don't see anything they've done. You know, what are the NAACP has always it's been around here 25, 30 years.
Now, didn't the Debonair Club? You said they cooked for that meeting on Saturday.
Yeah, they had a fundraiser breakfast, and it was like $5. And from my understanding, because I talked to Mrs. Harris, she said, you got a lot for your $5. You know, she got potatoes, eggs, grits, juice. I don't know if they had bread, bacon, sausage.
Who's in that club now?
Who's in
it? What are the ages?
Oh, God, they were my age, probably down to people in their 20s.
Okay. I didn't meet anyone
there. This is from the Debonair Club?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, they used to have a dance. It seemed like every weekend during the summer months and warm weather months. You know, they don't do a whole lot anymore. They don't do as much as they used to do. But I remember going there. God, I went there quite a few times when I got out of high school.
So, what was the Summer Soul Fest like?
This year, to me, it was boring. If you must know the truth, it just was. I mean, Summer Soul Fest basically starts out that morning. They have like a prayer breakfast, and it's an opportunity for the people in Black Expo, the board members and Black Expo members get to meet with the parade. What's it called? The Grand Master. Mm-hmm. You know, they choose different people to be like the Grand Master, and they put a parade together. They have not necessarily floats, but they have cars. The Expo Queens will ride. They ride a convertible. Last year they had some couple antique cars, and of course you had fire truck. Then seems like all your political candidates are in the parade. You know, and they drive and walk from Central High School down Walnut Street to Willard, and then they go east on Willard to, I'm thinking, Grant, and then turn on Grant and go to the park. And then basically your basketball tournament started in the morning around 8 o'clock, and they'll run all day long. They have different age categories. Other than that, then there's people just out there in the park. And then Sunday is always Gospel Fest. And and that's different choirs from around the city are invited out to the park to sing. My pastor has for the last 3 years he has been involved in putting the Gospel Fest together. And that to me, that's the best part of Summer Soul Fest is the gospel on Sunday. But other than that, it's an opportunity for blacks you probably don't see throughout the normal part of the year. They're out in the park. There was a time when it was notorious for fighting and people shooting guns, but probably about the last 3 years, the police presence has been really strong. We've had very little, if any, trouble at all, and that's a good thing, really.
How long has that been going on? The fest itself.
Seems like there's been before that it was called Soul Fest, and it really didn't have a whole lot to do with Expo, but it seemed like every summer they had basketball tournaments out there in the park. And then it was called, it was called just Soul Fest. And I guess Expo kind of came on board and decided to expand on it through their organization. And to me, it became a little bit more organized. It's like before Expo got involved, you saw a lot of people out there selling booze, and you don't see that. You don't see that as much. You still see people out there drinking, but you don't actually see anybody out there openly selling booze to make money. And that was always the big thing before.
What's the attendance like at the event? Are there a lot of people that come out, and do they come out in families or?
They do now. Now you see a lot of families out there with their kids. It's a good day to come out and see single mothers with their children. You see a lot of that, And of course, the young girls get to dress up in their fine clothes, and see a lot of skin-tight jeans. The thing that I probably enjoy the most is there is hardly any violence at all, whereas it used to be. I mean, you were in the park, and you knew at some point in time, some guy was going to argue with another guy. It's almost always over a girl, and then the macho guy's going to pull out his gun and act ignorant. But you haven't. I haven't. Like I said, I haven't seen that for the last 3 years. And that's simply because there's been such a strong police presence. It's an opportunity for people to go out in the park, have a good time, see the basketball tournaments. For those that play basketball, to participate in the tournaments, you get an opportunity to buy some good food, fish, barbecue. You don't see a whole lot of fried chicken, but there was a church out there last year. I can't think of the name of the church, but they were selling fish dinners, and something that a lot of people associate with fish dinners is spaghetti. So they had spaghetti and fried whiting. It was pretty good. In my group, we tried to sell some barbecued smoked sausages, and we didn't do too good. We probably would have made substantial money had we went ahead and invested in buying a couple cases of ribs and selling ribs. Me personally, I was being belligerent and didn't want to sit out there in bed, which I was out there all day anyway, but I didn't want to babysit a grill and cook barbecue ribs. Probably should have. They would have sold a lot better than the smoked sausages did. But you learn from your experience. Maybe next year, if I can get some more commissioners to come out and help, I might actually barbecue ribs. But for me to sit out there all day by myself, no. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. I might be out there all day, but like anybody else, I'd like a chance to get away from being near the grill and go out in the park and just socialize.
What is Hegan Park like during the year?
During the year, pretty dull, I would say. I mean, you got cabins in Hegan Park, and they're for rent through the Parks Department. There's a lot of family reunions there. Most of them are white. I got married in Hegan Park. It was really nice. A friend of mine at work has a horse and carriage, and for $250, I procured him for 6 hours, and he gave buggy rides. Real nice carriage. It's white with white leather interior, and he wore a tux with tails. And then the secretary on my job came out and she wore an evening gown. And they had a real good time. Awful lot of food. A friend of mine from Anderson, he catered. We had barbecue ribs, chicken tips, greens, sweet potatoes, baked beans, potato salad, this god-awful, I call it a god-awful wedding cake. My wife had seen it at Civic Theater for something and got the name of it. I mean, it tastes good, but it's just, I told her, I said, just the plain, how come we couldn't just have a 6-layer plain white wedding cake? And this cake was all different types of cake. But it was a good time. The night before, my buddies took me to the Joker's Wild. I lasted all of 60 minutes, and I was telling myself, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I said, but this is boring. It really is. I said, after going to a topless bar in Washington D.C., and this D.C. is total nudity, nothing. They wear a little garter belt to put the money in, but. And I went to a club there, and it was, to me, I thought it was very high class. I mean, they actually had a menu, they had real food, and even though there was smoking in the club, they had these great big exhaust fans in the ceiling, so when you could sit there and as people were smoking, and all the smoke was going straight up. So it wasn't offensive. The girls were clean, educated. They were very sociable. They did not. What's the word I want to use? They didn't solicit money for dancing. They would. If you were sitting near the stage, they would. You could, if you wanted to tip the girl $1, whatever you could. But they, after their dance was over, they didn't come right around your table and ask you if you wanted to give them $1 for their dance. And I thought that was classy. They had a doorman who was dressed up in a 3-piece suit. And even the bouncer was dressed up real nice. But I met one of the girls that danced there, and I asked her if she had a boyfriend. She said no, and she said she had 2 boys. And I said, well, why do you dance? She said, because I make $800 a day. Where else can I go and make this kind of money? And I said, well, how many hours do you work? And she worked 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. But here was, here was a single parent, who was doing what she knew to do to make a living and support her 2 kids. And a very nice young lady. Whereas the Joker's Wild, it's a dive. It is. I mean, those girls. But then again, I'm the type of guy, I went to my first burlesque when I was probably 19 years old. I was at the state fair. I don't sleep. To me, it's boring. I've never been one to, they used to have an X-rated drive-in movie theater in Blackford County. I went there twice with my first wife. Boring. I mean, there's more going on in the cars than what's going on the screen. And then I'm thinking, and then I actually got out and went to the concession stand to get something to eat, and I'm thinking, you're at an X-rated movie theater, and you're going to get popcorn and pop. For what?
Do a lot of people get married at Heacon Park?
I don't know. I would imagine they've had quite a few weddings out there. It's the cabins are pretty nice, and you can have you can make an afternoon of it or a morning of it, whatever. You can have your wedding and then have your reception and everything right there in the park. So I would say they probably have quite a few weddings there. I would say, I don't really know for sure. That was my wife's idea to get married at the park. If I had my way about it, I could have had a simple church wedding, but she wanted to have a big wedding because she'd never had one. So almost $5,000 later, I said, just think we could have done that $5,000. We could have spent $1,000 on the wedding and had $4,000 to go on a honeymoon somewhere. I said, what we do? We get married and go back to work.
What's the role of weddings in the Black community? Like, is it a big event? And do lots of people come out for them?
Well, lots of people come if you invite them, usually. There were probably 150 people at my wedding. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were some of them were people from my job. Quite a few of them were people from the theater that I'd worked with over the years. A lot of them was her family. My sister-in-law and my nephew and my 2 nieces from Kentucky drove up here for the day. My oldest brother, he wanted to come, but he's got emphysema so bad, and anytime he changes climates, he gets sick, so he didn't come. And I understood. My other older brother didn't come. My youngest brother was my best man. Oh, he got pissed. He got so mad because my other brother didn't come. He just said, "Hey, man, you tell him," I said, "he ain't squat." I said, "Here, call Mom, tell him yourself." But there's the closest between my little brother and myself. My older brother and I have it, and then me and baby brother do. But my other brother, we're close when we're in the theater because we can identify with each other. But outside of that, when he's at home, he's a hermit. He goes to work, he comes home, goes in his little room and stays there. And it's just him. Sometimes he aggravates me, but I get over it. Whereas my older brother, God, I used to go down to Kentucky and just run with him when he was in the military. We'd go out and go drinking and act silly. And then my little brother, well, what can I say? We did a lot of drugs together. Now we sit back and we look back over the stuff we did when we were young and go, man, we did some insane stuff. It's a wonder we're not dead. And that's what I tell him. I said, God had different plans for us. I said, look where we are today. I said, here you are, you're a professional golfer. You have a golf program for the youth in the city of Indianapolis. He's an accomplished musician. He's the head coach of golfing. He's a head golf instructor at is it Rebuff or it's Rebuff High School?
Rebuff,
yeah, he's there. He's their golf coach. And he's also a golf pro for a country club down in Indy. So he's very, very busy. But he always makes time for me. It's kind of neat. When I was in D.C., he was in D.C. too. When I got there, when I called him on his cell phone, his flight was just landing at the airport. And about 45 minutes later, he called me back. He said, man, I couldn't answer my phone on the airplane because they don't let you use your cell phone. He said, it was on. He said, I just couldn't answer it. And he said, you called me and I was just landing. It was kind of neat because he was up there promoting his youth golf program. He used to travel around the country and do what's the word I want to use? He'd do presentations for the youth golf program because he worked under Lee Elder, and then him and Lee had a party of the ways. It was something about Lee was taking some grant money and paying bills, his own personal bills with it, and they had a party of the ways because that's a no-no. When you start taking money that has been given to you through a grant and you start spending on something other than what it's supposed to be designated to be spent on, you start getting areas of fraud, misrepresentation. He just, he said rather than deal with that and Lee go to jail, and he said, I'm looking at maybe going to jail with him. He said, I just broke off from him. And that's when Indianapolis picked up his youth golf program and funded it for him. And then he's been very successful with it. He has an average of about 1,200 kids a year down there. And still finds time to come down here one day out of the week during the summer month for 8 weeks and run our golf program for us. So that's where his heart is. He likes kids. He's an avid golfer, very good at what he does, and he enjoys teaching kids. We've both been blessed.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing the golf program with the commission?
This is our second year. We're looking at maybe one more year before funding runs out. We don't know. But we're also looking for an alternative source for funding to continue the program. So hopefully we'll be able to write a grant to maybe get a grant approved through the Tiger Woods Foundation, which has funding for this particular type program. If not, then we'll look for some money within the city of Muncie.
What is it like for the kids to be able to play golf in the community?
Black kids really don't. A lot of them came in with not knowing what to expect. This will be his second year with the program. The first year we had Doug Bishop at MD Golf Academy, and I just think we didn't get our money's worth from Doug. I'm not going to fault Doug. I think it was kind of our fault because we really didn't have a plan up front. But Russell's the type of person that he wants you to learn the business side of the sport as well as the athletic side, and he also wants the kids to know that he started out washing golf carts and collecting. And he was the guy that went out and collected all the golf balls, and that's how he got interested in it. You know, the kids need to know it's not where you walk out on the golf course, pick up a club, and just start playing. You know, there's some other things involved. You know, and he feels like that if they learn the business side and then learn the sport itself, it makes it a little bit more interesting for them. And he also wants the kids to be aware that golf can take you anywhere you want to go if you're good at it. There are an awful lot of scholarships out there that are not being used, and money's just laying there. You know, and for whatever reason, the school systems don't particularly promote blacks in golf in their program. Now, I was told that Delta High School has a black golfer that's on the golfing team. You know, and it's a good thing to hear. It kind of shocked me, you know. Well, there aren't even that many blacks in that school district, but you know, it's a nice thing to know. And another thing I like about the sport of golf is there's not another sport, professional or otherwise, that you can do until your 80s. You know, you don't see baseball players, football players. You don't even see tennis players playing tennis in their 80s, maybe into their 60s, early 70s if they're in good health. And I don't ever recall ever seeing an 80-year-old tennis player. You know, you can play golf at any age if you're healthy. And it seems to me that if you stop and look at most of your successful professional athletes, they play golf in their leisure time, especially in the off season. You know, Michael Jordan's an avid golfer. Shaquille O'Neal plays golf, and it's just, you know, and kids need to understand everybody can't be a football player, baseball player, or basketball player. So if you want to be athletically inclined and make a lot of money, golfers make a lot of money. I mean, you know, Tiger Woods' caddy made $1 million last year. You know, for $1 million, I'll carry some golf clubs. Now, and you would too. So you wouldn't.
I would.
You know, I think it's an opportunity for the kids to learn that there is a sport out there that they're not being told about, and it's not being sensationalized by the media. You know, it is now because of Tiger Woods, you know. But here's a kid that at 3 years old, his father put a golf club in his hands because his father saw something in him that nobody else saw. You know, and this young man at what? How old is Tiger?
21.
He's older than that. Gotta be
23,
24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
At 20, let's say he's 24. At 24, he is already a legend in this sport. And golf is hundreds of years old. Started in Scotland. You know, but this kid has broke every major golfing record that there is. You know, and he, to me, I like his humility and his sincerity, especially when it comes to young poor kids. You know, like I said, he has a program that is designed, and he has a grant program that is designed to give funding to inner city youth programs for golf, so that the inner city youth can learn how to play. And that's a good thing. You know, it's just a matter of getting the inner city poor, lower income kids interested in the sport, and then letting them be aware that, you know, hey, if you're really good at this and you pursue this, you can go to college and have all your expenses paid by going out there and whacking this ball around on a golf course. All you got to do is just be good at it. Golf is probably one of the few professional sports where there's a lot of money and scholarships that never gets used, simply because it's not being exposed. You know, my little brother had a 14-year-old girl that he taught how to play golf and took her to a tournament, and she won. This kid she just graduated from high school, going to go to college. She has a full golf scholarship to go to school, simply because somebody took an interest in her and decided to teach her the sport. And she had a gift, a talent for it. Now, because of her love of the game, she's going to school, and it's not going to cost her a dime. You know, that's one story out of hundreds. Thing is, getting black kids or minority kids, and that can be black, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. Getting these kids interested in sport. You know, all they see on TV is football, baseball, basketball, tennis, you know, but football but basketball probably more so than anything, you know, and it's really important that kids learn that even though you may want to be a professional athlete, you need to have the education to fall on when your athletic participating days are over with. You know, there's a lot of athletes that you know, don't even finish college to go into professional ranks and get injured, and their career's over with, and they have no degree to fall back on. You know, so it's really important to strive to the kids that, hey, get the education too. You know, even though you may want to be a professional football player, professional basketball player, or baseball player, get your degree. That way,
and like be grounded in what their aspirations are. Do you think it's like teachers or parents or what?
In this day and age, it's really hard to say. It's the parents' responsibility, but you especially in low-income black families, you run into a thing where the mother has to work so much to keep a home that she's not around. So I would say probably your teacher is probably a big influence on the child.
Do you think friends have a big influence on? Friends and like the media have an influence on that too, like how they perceive the closeness of that reality?
Probably. You know, one of the things that you deal with, and specifically in the black community, is in this day and age, it used to be you saw a lot of black males were being incarcerated. Okay, now the trend is also swinging over to the female side. A lot of black females are being incarcerated, and for the same thing, the black males, drug abuse. You know. Right now, this country has a cocaine epidemic going on in it. And how do you fight this? I say, rather than incarcerate the addict, put the addict in treatment. It's cheaper to put an addict through rehab than it is to put him in prison. You know, at least in rehab, they may have a chance to discover why they do, what they need to do to kick the habit. You know, and rehab is where discovery begins. You begin to discover what your problem is and some of the things you need to do to deal with your addiction. Now, when you get out of rehab, and not everybody has to go to rehab. Some people have found God and gone to church and found God and gone that route. That's okay, but it's also proven that route doesn't work for everybody. Most addicts that I've ever come in contact with are so mad at God because they're an addict. That's the last thing they want to hear. But I think if you treat the addict, you get the addict off the dope, so he or she is not buying the drug. The dealer has nobody to sell to. But unfortunately, there's always going to be a demand for drugs. Whether I like it or you like it, it's been there throughout the history of mankind, and I don't think you'll ever see drug abuse eradicated. I just don't. No matter how much money they spend on the war on drugs, you're not going to stop it. Drugs are big business, first of all. And as long as there's massive amounts of money, and I'm talking about billions of dollars to be made, you're going to have a problem. You are. And as long as you have officials, police officers, government officials, whether it be senators or your, the inspectors that work the wars and everything, drugs, there's always going to be somebody who's going to turn his back and look the other way. And because of that, the drugs will continue to come in this country. Now, if he point blank, if you want to stop the use of cocaine, kill the plant, destroy the plant. But if you do that, you got to destroy the earth. Granted, coca, there's a special climate that it takes for that drug to grow in, you know. But you're just not going to stop drugs. You're just not, and that's a reality. It's not one that I like to admit. You know, but when you look at the bottom line, you look at the truth of the matter, there's just no stopping it because there's too much money involved. Probably the smartest thing that we could do is legalize it. But if you legalize it, then you got to figure out a way to tax it. And if you legalize it and tax it, then what are you looking at? Are you looking at a nation of junkies? See, that's the flip side of the coin. Now you got your street corner cocaine addict. He can go to the drugstore and buy his drug of choice. If you make it readily accessible, then by making it really accessible. Okay, the government is making money from the taxes, but at what expense to the public? I know if cocaine was legal when I was using, you wouldn't be sitting there talking to me today. I can guarantee it. I'd probably be dead or still using. But by the same token, if I hadn't stopped using what I did, I'd probably be dead. Or out there in La La Land somewhere. It's kind of, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. So, I think, well, I have an answer for drug abuse. And that is, as people begin to look towards their Creator, as people begin to not necessarily get into church, but as people begin to get into a personal relationship with God, their drug abuse will stop, simply because they have found something to fill their void. One of the things that you have to do when you stop any addiction is you have to find something to replace what you gave up, something to occupy that time slot. You can't just stop and do nothing. It doesn't work that way. You have to find something to replace what you stop doing. You got to fill that slot with something else to do. And for me, I stay busy. You know, if I sat there and said I never think about using drugs, that would be a lie. The thought pops in my mind occasionally, but I never allow it to linger there. You know, and if it stays too long, I'm smart. If I pick up the phone and call my sponsor or call somebody on my phone and say, you know, feeling low right now, not really thinking of using, but I'm thinking about the drug itself. You know, and you find that when you talk to somebody else, that takes all the power out of that thought. When all else fails, I pray. And then I pray that I get tired. Once I'm tired, the thought is gone, and I know I'm not going to use because I'm too doggone tired to use. I woke up one time, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I knew I had to go to work, but I wanted to use, just wanted to go out and buy some cocaine and get high. And I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed. When I got through praying, I had to be at work in about 45 minutes. So I slept for about 40 minutes, got up and got ready for work, went to work, and then lo and behold, I discovered prayer worked. And when all else fails, just pray. Pray till the moment passes. And if you pray long enough, the moment will pass. Trust me. Now I stay clean and sober because I like the way I feel. I like feeling this way. Everything that I look for in alcohol and drugs, I found in my relationship with God. He has filled the addictive void with a spiritual fullness. You know, I like my relationship that I have with God. It's one-on-one, personal. You know, he's my best friend. I can tell God anything. Anything. I can tell him things I wouldn't begin to tell another human being. You know, and he's okay with it, and so am I, because he ain't talking. You know, one of the things you do in 12-step programs is your fifth step is you tell. It's the fifth step. You admit to yourself, God, and another human being the exact nature of your wrongs. I said, well, God already knows, and so do I. So now I got to deal with this other human being. In my case, it was a minister, someone who was bound by confidentiality, not to tell what I tell him. You know, and that worked for me. But in the telling the other person, and telling another human being the exact nature of your wrongs, that's taking a load. That's taking a burden off you, because now you've professed your wrongs. It's out in the open, and it doesn't have to be a secret anymore. There are some things I'll probably take to my grave with me because I'm not telling anybody, and God already knows, so I don't have to worry about him. But I think that's true of any human being. I think everybody has certain secrets they're not ever going to tell anybody. And if you can live with it, well, why not, I guess. But I'm a better person today than I was 11 years ago. 11 years ago, I was hell-bound on destroying me. Today, I'm hell-bound on helping out my community. If at some point in my life before I die, I have one person come up to me and say, you know, you made a difference in my life, as far as I'm concerned, I did my job. And by the grace of God, in the last 3 years, I've had 2 people tell me that I made a positive impact on their lives when they were teenagers, simply by being at the Muncie Boys Club. And Lord knows I was a hell raiser there. But they saw something positive in me that they liked. One of them is a very, very religious man today, and the other guy works for the trash barn. You know, and there's probably not a better feeling to have somebody tell you that. I mean, well, what can I say? When nobody was looking, the old John Boy cried. You know, but it felt good. You know, there is no greater love than one who will lay down their life for another human being. That's true. But just the fact that somebody said that I made a dent or made an impact on their life, and it was positive. That's a real good feeling.
What is the Muncie Boys Club like?
Back when I was a kid, it was a lot of fun. They had arts and craft room. They had a games room where you could either shoot pool or play ping pong. Had a gym where you could play basketball. We played dodgeball. They had a trampoline in there. Never did really learn how to do anything on a trampoline. I was scared to flip, but I could get on there and jump, bounce something down, and sit and bounce on my butt for hours. But it was a lot of fun. It was something for a young kid my age, somewhere for me to go and be around other kids and associate with them. You know, and the attendance there was mixed. You know, they had a camp called Camp Adventure. I never really got to go to camp when I was a kid going there, but I went out to the camp several times when I worked there because I got a job working there after school. We did some things that we should have done there too. Like we had some booze parties there. We got caught. We were employees and we were going to the time trials the next day, and we all went out and bought a bunch of liquor. We figured we'd sleep here at the club and get on the bus the next day. Went out and bought a bunch of liquor, and lo and behold, we got busted by the director, and the program director, and the executive director. And it's simply because they just followed a trail of liquor bottles through the park up to the door. So then they made it. We went to the time trials, all hung over, and went to the Indianapolis 500 time trials, and had a okay time after we got through dealing with the headaches. Got fired, got my job back, and made me paint the entire basement of that building. All the pipes, the walls, the floor, ceilings. I had to do that to get my job back. And I did it. But
how old were you then?
So when I got fired, I think I was like maybe 15, 16 years old. Went to California went to California when I was 15 also. I went there in the summer of my 15th birthday. When I came back, went back to the Boys Club to get my job back, and the executive director called my mom and said, "Have you talked to your son?" She said, "Why?" "I don't know what he did in California for the summer," he said, "but he is not the same young man that left her." He said he's extremely streetwise. L.A. made me grow up quick. But it did. Of course, my brother had a lot to do with it. You know, that's where I got introduced to marijuana at 15. He didn't make me smoke it. I just decided I was going to try to roll a joint, and I rolled the perfect joint, real fat in the middle and skinny on the ends. And Lord have mercy, I smoked the joint and I got my first taste of munchies, and I ate up everything in the house. I came back, and I learned so much that summer from hanging with him and older people, and then the city kids are much more mature than the kids were back here in Muncie. You know, I went out there a 50-year-old, and I came back with the mental attitude of an adult. And they didn't want me imparting my wisdom on the young boys at the boys' club, so they had to talk with me and my mom. They gave my job back. But I guess I've always been one that I've always hung around with older people when I was younger. Now the young kids, especially the kids in theater, hang around me. And for whatever reason, when they ask me what I was like when I was their age, I tell them. You know, pissed off a few parents, but I tell the parents, I would rather they know the things that I did that were mistakes, and I admit that they were mistakes, in the hopes that they won't go out and do the same thing I did. Now, if you have a problem with that, then that's okay too. But I'm not going to lie to your child either. They need to know that this happy-go-lucky guy they see before them today has not always been that way. You know, yeah, I'm not going to say I necessarily did bad things, but I made some bad choices. And it doesn't have anything to do with my parents. My mother raised me right. I made my own decisions, and some of them were not very good decisions. And I paid a price for them. But I also have the experience that I can share with these young people. Hey, you need to know that there are certain things that you should not do, because if you do these things, these are the consequences that you will reap for your actions. And if they listen, fine. If they don't listen, then they're going to do it anyway, and they're going to have to learn the same way I did. Do you know the definition of insanity? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. The results will not change. So what does that tell you? What that tells you is you have to change. That's how you quit using drugs. You learn. I knew how to be a good addict. I just didn't know how to stay clean. I had to learn how to do that. And you learn that if you don't take the drug, you can't get high. If you don't drink the drink, you can't get drunk. So they say the simplest way to stay clean and sober is abstain. Don't pick it up to begin with. And just realize it's only from here to here away from your mouth, an arm's length away. First pill, first drink.
What else do you do now to keep busy?
What else do? I sing at a quiet church. I have choir practice on Monday, Bible study on Wednesday. I'm on the board of directors for the Serenity Club. I'm the vice president. That is a facility that allows 12-step meetings to meet there on a regular basis to offer support for recovering alcoholics and drug addicts. I'm on the board of directors for Muncie Civic Theater. I'm finishing up my 3rd year on that board, then I'll be coming off the board. The executive director of the Commission on Social Status of Black Males. I'm real active with that group. Used to go to a lot of state commission meetings. I don't go as often as I would like to go, simply because it requires me to use my own personal time to go, and I kind of feel like the city should give me that day to go to that meeting and pay me. Well, until I can convince them to do that, I probably make 3 out of 12 meetings a year. But I do go to the state convention, have for the last 3 years. Been to one national convention out in Indianapolis. The conventions are very informative as to what's going on in the black community as far as health, education, and welfare. We know that there is a major problem in black America. Lack of jobs, unemployment is extremely high in the black community. How blacks are perceived in the system. Unfortunately, we work in a system that is predominantly white-oriented, and it's through no fault of the system itself. The fault lies within you have to go way back to anthropology. That's where it started. It started in the Caucasus Mountains, which border Europe and Russia. And the Europeans found a giant skull, supersized skull in the Caucasus Mountains, claimed it for their own, and said, okay, because of this giant skull, we have a supersized brain, we are superior. So therefore, the social structure began with whites at the top, Hispanics, Asians in the middle, and blacks at the bottom. Well, all the myths about black people have been disproven. That they are there. That's what they are, they're myths. We are not inferior in some situations. And I would say on a survival scale, we are superior, just throughout, given our history. They talk about, and this is strange, they talk about the millions of Jews that Hitler slaughtered, but you don't see anything about the millions, and I mean millions. There were more slaves killed on the trip from Africa to America than Hitler ever slaughtered. Hitler slaughtered less Jews than slaves that were killed coming into this country, that you don't read about in any history books. But it is fact. It's also a fact that blacks were here in America long before whites were. We were here in 1200 BC. And if you look, a good example is, okay, you see your pyramids. The pyramids come from Africa, do they not? Egypt. But you have pyramids in South America. You have pyramids in Mexico. How did that design get here? It's proof that we had already been here. I told that to my wife, and she said, well, how did you get over? I said, we swam, idiot. I said, no. I said, we built ships, and we sailed over here. I said, you think as Africans as being these little naked savages running up and down the beach. I said, no. I said, recorded African history tells us of great kings who went on safari. It says it talks about them having great stores of gold, so we knew they knew the meaning of money. They kept records, so we knew that they had a writing system. I said, a lot of things that you take for granted today, inventions in particular, I said there are a lot of black inventions that black people never got credit for. She said, such as, I said, well, let's get beyond, was it Washington Carver? So let's get beyond him. I said, the mailbox that you go out there and put your envelope in, drop your mail, I said, that was discovered by a black man. I said, the central air conditioning in your car was invented by a man of color. I said, it's little simple things that you take for granted. I said, the iron that you iron your clothes with, invented by a person of color. Madam C.J. Walker invented hair care products for black people, not necessarily to straighten their hair, but to make their hair manageable. And here was a lady who wasn't educated, but she was intelligent enough to put educated people around her to help her build her business up, and she made it a point to give back to her community. She started beauty colleges, and she put a lot of money into the community itself. First female black millionaire. Not an educated woman, but an intelligent woman.
Now, at the commission meeting, Jerome mentioned the high school or the school textbooks in Muncie. What is your take on that?
Not enough black history in there, and it's my belief, and it's just my own personal opinion, that until this country is willing to stand up and acknowledge the history of the people whose backs this country was built on, and put that history, even if it hurts, put it in the textbooks so that every nationality has a right to pick up that history book and see a section dedicated to their own personal history and the importance and the role they played in the making of this country. If you read the United States history books, you would believe that the white man built this country by himself. Well, God knows that's a lie, because the Chinese helped build the railroads. There were more Chinese working on railroads than blacks or Irish. But we were there doing our fair share. But you see very little about Chinese on the railroad. I hate to say it, and I'm not blaming anybody, because it takes a pretty smart individual to take credit for everything and get by with it. But by the same token, the white man in his intelligence will turn right back around and tell on himself. If you notice that, he does. He's real good about it. He claims he takes claim for things that he didn't do, but at some point in time, he turns around and tells on himself. And oddly, and that's why it's really important to look at the Hispanic population in this country as it begins to increase. Very slowly, the Euro-American or white society is becoming a minority in this country. You've always been a minority in the world, but unfortunately, you were intelligent enough. In South Africa is a perfect example. Several 100,000 whites rule several million blacks. They did that by keeping them separated. Of course, you had language barriers, because there are so many different African dialects, and in the same way in China, there's so many different Chinese dialects. It ain't funny. You could be in one part of China and go 100 miles away, and you might speak Chinese, but they don't understand a word you say because of the dialect. Nelson Mandela, as a man, has done more for black Africa than anybody to pull them together as a nation. And any man that could spend 26 years of their life in prison and get out and have no animosity towards the white race, if that man don't go to heaven, ain't nobody going. I'm just going to tell you. And to me, he's a true man of God. To have spent he spent over half his lifetime in prison. And he was a better man because of it. The one thing that I know that the society in America fears is a person who has charisma. John Kennedy, charismatic. A person who could speak and make people listen, a person who was not afraid to take a stand on what they believed, and because he was willing to do that, they got rid of his butt. Martin Luther King, perfect example. Malcolm X, another person. Malcolm X was murdered because he made a pilgrimage to Mecca, came back and was trying to tell the people of the Nation of Islam the true meaning of Islam, and Elijah Muhammad had him murdered. Can't prove it, but I believe that with all my heart. You know, Islam is not about color. It's about faith. And that's the bottom line. And everything that Elijah Muhammad was teaching the nation of Islam was a lie. And I know a little bit about Elijah Muhammad. He was a Moorish American. He was a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America before he broke away and started the Nation of Islam. You know, unfortunately, and Farrakhan Khan is a very well-educated man. Can you imagine what would have happened if Elijah Muhammad, Farrakhan Khan, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King had all sat down at a table like this and put their minds together? Black America as we know it today would be totally different. But you couldn't get them to sit down and agree to have a meeting of the minds. Too busy wanting their own individual, except for Martin Luther King. They were too busy with their own individual ideas at the time. But you know, then that's been a downfall in the black community. The not having a meeting of the minds, and the people who are in position to make a change, they want the rewards of being in the upper social structure, but not willing to reach back and pull somebody up with them. You know, moving out of the hood, becoming successful, and not particularly wanting to go back to the hood and find someone that shows promise and help them too. And that's one of the biggest problems that we as a people face. Come together in times of stress. When there's a catastrophe, all blacks pull together like nobody's business, but the minute the pressure lets up, everybody goes their separate way. Rather than stay together and find a solution to the problem, you know. And the bottom line is, we are the problem. Because we still have that slave mentality way of thinking. And I don't know what can be done to change that way of thinking. You know, it's been drilled into us for so many years that, you know, but change can stop racism in America. Churches are your answer. If the church would stand up and practice what it preaches, you could basically eradicate racism in this country. The most segregated day of the week is Sunday. The blacks go to their churches and the whites go to their churches. The most segregated day of the week. If the churches would open their doors, find a sister church to fellowship with, and agree that if it's nothing but one Sunday every 3 months, my church will come to your church, and we'll come together as one congregation, and then 3 months later down the road, your church comes to my church, and we come together as a congregation. Those barriers that have been erected over the years will begin to come down, because you will begin to discover that under God's rule, you are equal. And if you follow God's law and not man's law, there are things that are politically correct, and then there are things that are morally correct. And oftentimes, politically correct is what is accepted as being the norm, even though it's not right. You know, when man learns to obey God's law, he will have fewer problems. The consequences of disobeying God are by far a lot worse than the consequences of disobeying man. Because in society, if you got enough money, you can just about buy your way out of anything. You violate God's law, and you can't buy your way out of it. You have to repent your way out of it, but you can't buy your way out. So, there's a beginning now when they have the Unity Fellowship out to the Wesley Foundation. You have a group of churches, black and white, to come together in fellowship. And as you see more and more of this happening, then the churches will begin to tear down the barriers that have kept us separated. I mean, you can be an apostolic, but if you go to an apostolic church that's predominantly white, they will steer you towards an apostolic church that has basically a black congregation. Well, what's the difference? Apostolic is apostolic. I've been to some churches and have been asked to leave, but I've been made to feel quite uncomfortable because I'm there, and I know it's because I'm black. But God told me I have as much right to be at that church as they do because the church is not theirs anyway. It all belongs to Him. There is one church, one Trinity, one God. And there shouldn't be any denominations. Nowhere did God declare denominations. The disciples went out and started the denominations on their own. You cannot show me anywhere in Scripture where God instructed them to start. Unfortunately, but then again, the flip side of that coin, as long as you got the devil, you're always going to have prejudiced people too, because that's, the devil don't want nobody to get along. But people have to. They don't have to, but people that are supposedly Christians have to accept the reality that the greatest stunt Satan ever pulled was he convinced mankind that he did not exist. And the minute we stopped believing he existed, that was when he became the strongest, because then we gave him free reign to do what he wanted to with us. And every time we disobey what God wants us to do, my pastor said, you give Satan a stick. And he stands, and I remember, you gave him this stick. When you don't do what God wants you to do, say, Satan just stands with that stick and just beats you across your head with it. He said, the more lickings you get, he said, the farther away you get from God. And he said, Satan just sits there and waits, and he says, about the time you say, well, okay, I'm gonna do what Scripture says. Satan said, why? You ain't been doing it. Why do it now? It makes you doubt. The just shall live by faith. And faith is a belief in things unseen. I work with people that say they are atheists, and I tell them, I said, describe an atheist. I don't believe in God. I said, do you realize that to even have the word come out of your mouth that you don't believe in Him, because that gives Him acknowledgement? In order for you not to believe in Him, you would have to have been brought up in a society where there was nothing you were never ever told that there was something superior to you. I believe that there are people who are agnostic who don't know. But for a person to say that they are a pure atheist, I in my mind's eye, I can't see how it's possible. I just can't.
You mentioned Sunday being the most segregated day of the week, as far as and that's related to church, but what about related to leisure? Do you still see segregation? Yeah,
unless different groups or organizations plan events around coming together. And that's been true. That's been true forever. That's why back years ago blacks had their own social organizations, because they weren't allowed to join the white organizations. A good example is the Jewish people. The Jews became powerful in this country simply because white society refused them admittance into the regular job force. Jews weren't allowed to become teachers. They weren't allowed to become factory workers. So they went into the jobs that made a lot of money. You find a lot of Jews that are jewelers, doctors, lawyers, bankers. They went into those professions that allowed them to manipulate and control the society around them. Do you know that the Jews defeated Napoleon at Waterloo by financing the enemy? Jews, even I think there's been several wars that they have poured. The Rothschild family, in particular, poured a lot of money in World War II. Their money helped win wars. But see, they were smart enough to realize, hey, if I can't get into mainstream society, fine. I'll go into that part of society that allows me to be independently wealthy. And Jews to this day send money back to Israel, faithful to their native land. How many blacks do I know that send money to Africa? A few. Not very many. To this day, Orthodox Jews still send money home to Israel, to their families and relatives. And here again, this was a situation where white society, by not admitting them in the mainstream society, allowed them to put themselves in a position of great power. And money does talk. I guarantee you, if I had Bill Gates' money, I would have so much political power, it would be scary.
If you had political power, what would you do with it?
If I had political power, probably what I would do with it would get me assassinated, because I would use my political power to begin to make a racial change in this country. I would somehow try to figure out a way to eradicate racism. I would try to figure out a way to get all history in the history books. And then you're talking about massive amounts of money, because all the history books, as we know them today, would have to be tossed out, and you'd have to start from scratch and go in a new print. The financing alone would be astronomical, and that would be something that I don't think you'd get this government today, or any government. I think if you could start at the local level, maybe. If you started like in the elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, and then eventually move into the college system. But you're talking about something that it could take anywhere from a decade to a century to have this occur. This is something that would not occur overnight. It might take. I don't think it would occur in 10 years, not even 20. Because once you get started, you're going to have to start compiling information and doing exactly what you guys are doing, gathering information and then documenting the information, make sure it's factual, and then beginning to put it in book form. Do I think it will ever happen? No, I truly don't. Not in my lifetime anyway. But I think that if you start now, that you can make some changes in the history books. Make the history books tell the whole truth, not part of it. Until the United States stands up and admits its mistakes towards itself and the people in its society, healing is not ever going to start. Healing starts by telling the truth, and even if the truth hurts, I can get over being hurt by the truth a lot easier than I get over by being hurt by a lie. Because the truth I can live with, a lie I don't want to live with and shouldn't have to. But when you stand up and tell the truth and you own up to your mistakes, then other people can begin to accept you for who you are and what you are. Like I said, then the healing process can begin to take place. And as you begin to heal, as this country begins to heal, then we truly become spiritually strong, and we become morally correct, and get away from the political correctness. That's why you have separation of church and state. If you look back over history, at one time, especially in Europe, churches were extremely powerful. The church actually had more power than the king or the monarch. As quiet as it was kept. Most good kings had someone from the church calling the shots a lot of times. See, I see the world as it should be, but I deal with the world as it is. I know in my own personal opinion how I think the world should be. Now will it ever happen? Probably not. Not as long as you have good and evil in the world. There's always going to be a difference of opinion. There's always going to be some type of separation. But I think that we as human beings can overcome a lot of obstacles that are in our way now simply by, like I said, sitting down at the table and looking at the things we have in common instead of the differences, the things we don't have in common, and working on that which we are capable of sharing. The more you share, and the more you get to know a person, the better you understand that person, what they're about, where they came from, and the closer you come to being friends. I don't think anybody's born being an enemy. I truly don't. I don't think anybody has more in hating. Hatred is something that is taught. Racism is something that is taught to kids. If you take Chinese kids, Mexican kids, black kids, white kids, you can take kids of all different nationalities, put them in the community, and let them grow up on their own, and don't mess with them. Teach them right from wrong. Keep all that other crap out of there. These kids will grow up probably more times than not being friends, having healthy attitudes towards one another, having respect for one another. But unfortunately, adults want to interfere. Well, you see that kid over there? He's black. You're not supposed to socialize. Well, that kid's Hispanic. You'll socialize with them. Then you get the separation. You start driving that wedge. But if you just leave the kids alone and let them decide for themselves, kids more often than not are extremely truthful to the point of brutality. Kids, you want brutal truth? Ask a child, because if a child is young, they don't know how to lie, and they're gonna tell you exactly what they think or feel, and yeah, it might hurt, but if it hurts, then it means that you need to take a look at you.
How do kids learn about this in Muncie? About the separation?
How do kids learn?
Like growing up in Muncie, what do you learn about race?
The white kids were taught to dislike blacks. I wasn't taught to dislike whites. I was very fortunate in the fact that my mother and my great grandmother was mixed. Her mother was a slave. Her father was a white man. But I was taught to respect people and not look at color. As a young man, I didn't acknowledge color unless you made me acknowledge it. But I found there were times when I could become extremely bitter and angry towards whites, well, blacks too. I was the one guy in high school that most of my friends were white, simply because when I was 10 years old, my parents moved downtown Muncie. There were no blacks downtown. So I was taken out of a mixed neighborhood, put in a predominantly white neighborhood. Spent most of my teenage and young adult years in that white neighborhood. You find that the environment you are put in is the environment that you emulate what you see. If you were to talk to me on the phone and did not know I was black, talking to me on the phone, you still wouldn't know. Because I've answered the phone at work too many times and been called a white person's name, supervisors in particular. Something I didn't realize until after I graduated from high school, some of the blacks I went to school with told me that I was different. Said, number one, he said you were so clean when you came to school. Said you always had, your shirts were always pressed, your slacks were always creased. You never hung around with us. Well, I didn't hang around with you guys because at 13 years old, I was working at the Muncie Boys Club. At 15, I had a job in a jewelry store working for a Jew. I started taking judo when I was 15. So then the judo team was put out. There were two blacks on the judo team, me and Earl Davis, who was a captain of the Sheriff's Department today. And I hung around with the judo team members. Those were my friends. We went to school together. We practiced together. We went to tournaments together. And those are the ones I hung around with. So as a result, yeah, I guess I was different. But I didn't notice it because I was just being John. I was being the only person I knew how to be. My first wife, of course my second wife, my first wife was a German girl. And we went to Atlanta, Georgia in 1980. And we were walking through the airport to claim our bags, and a southern white man walked by. He looked at her, he looked at me, and his comment was, "Oh, what a waste." And I tell you what, had it not been for my wife, I'd have stomped his butt right there in the airport, because man, my jaws locked. I was so mad. And she just grabbed my hand and said, "Don't pay me attention." And she pulling me. 1980, I was 30 years old. I weighed about 210 pounds. Worked out every day. had been trained in the martial arts for right around 15 years. But I clenched my teeth and I walked. I've had people, when I first got married to my first wife, I've had people right here in Muncie call her nigger lover. And one night we were walking down the street and a guy bumped into me and I said, "Excuse me." And he said, "You damn right, excuse you, nigger." And I told her, I said, "Go home." And I stomped his butt right then and there.
Where was that at?
Right over in front of the Muncie Public Library. We lived right across the street in the economic apartments. I said, "Go home now." And I turned around and said, "Excuse me." I said, "But this ass whooping you gonna take." And then I lost it. I almost beat that man to death. And I didn't feel bad about it either. I sure didn't.
What was it like living in downtown Muncie when you were a kid?
I kind of liked it. When we first moved downtown, I used to walk back across town to visit my friends. And one day it dawned on me that I was doing a lot more walking that way than they were doing this way. And I just quit going. And I got used to staying home and being by myself. I'm not going to say I was withdrawn, but I got to the point where I was okay being at home and not having to walk back to be with my friends every day.
Downtown, Lonnie told us about the pork chop and the chicken sack. Did you know of those places, or you don't recognize them?
The pork chop? You mean, he's talking about the chicken shack.
Chicken shack, okay.
Yeah, he's talking that was Tisha's Chicken Shack. That was over on 7th Street, right off of Beacon. And it was Jesse Nelson had that. And you go in, they served fried chicken, they gambled, and they sold bootleg liquor. And apparently, every once in a while, they had a big garage out behind the house, and they would have dances and stuff. And it was a hangout for blacks. And the pork, there used to be a place called the Pork Chop Inn, and that was another bootleg joint. Blacks are notorious for bootlegging, selling liquor on Sunday. It was a place for you to go, and you could buy bootleg beer or buy bootleg whiskey. They had carry out, or you'd come in and sit down. A lot of places you'd go in and sit down and play cards. Some places even sold food. A place that I used to go when I was a young man was Anna Lou's. And she had like a restaurant bootleg joint right across the street from her house, and she had girls that sold themselves for money at her house, prostitutes. But I used to go there. I attended the bar, and I would get off work from the bar, and I'd go to Anna Lou's. And a lot of times I'd go and sit there and drink and maybe get something to eat. I went to jail one time because they raided the place, but she bailed me out. So, blacks are notorious for, it was around here anyway, we're notorious for having, I call them, you can call them juke joints. Someplace you can go on Sunday and buy liquor illegally. Because for a lot of years, you couldn't buy liquor on Sunday in Indiana, and then they passed that law where if you had a restaurant and you did so many $1,000s of business per year, you could have a Sunday liquor sale. But it wasn't carry out. It was, come in and sit out and drink.
Did you ever go and dance at the Chicken Shack?
Maybe once or twice. It wasn't one. It wasn't, and that was after I got older. I got married at 24, so, and I was heavily, 24, I was into drinking and drugging and acting a fool, running around, messing around with other women, acting just out of control, really. Had a beautiful wife. I sometimes look back at that marriage, which lasted 17 years, and it's a wonder it lasted that long. I sometimes look back and then I think if I could go back and do things differently, I'd probably still be married to the same woman. We had our differences, we had our problems. I played out on her first, and then she started playing out on me. And in the end, when I wanted to be a husband and a father and be married, It was already the damage was already done to the extent there wasn't any putting the marriage back together. And I got to taste how it felt for her to mess around on me, and I didn't like it. You know, one day in a fit of weakness, she asked for a divorce, and I said yeah. And next thing I know, I was moving out of the house into an apartment. And little did I know that my divorce was going to create some hellified piles. I didn't even really use cocaine until I was 42 years old. And a woman introduced me to it. Imagine that. Adam and Eve all over again. Here, bite this apple. No, it was a girl that was a good friend of mine that I had messed around with off and on, and she turned me on to crack, and I liked it. For me, it was euphoric. I had a drug that offered, when I had it in my possession, it offered me power over other human beings, women in particular. When I smoked it, I thought I was Don Juan, the greatest lover in the world. The drug offered me everything I thought I wanted to be. And in the end, it offered me what I didn't want to be, and that was a life. That was addiction to something that I could not stop using. I'd stopped using amphetamines, and stopped smoking reefer, and even stopped drinking alcohol, but crack cocaine could not stop. I finally met a drug that could whip me, and it did.
What kind of support is there in Muncie for recovery?
Narcotics Anonymous is pretty strong around here. Alcoholics Anonymous, when I first got into recovery, was real strong. Narcotics Anonymous wasn't that strong, but now it's kind of turned. The table's kind of turned. NA is stronger than AA. You know, in recovery, and people have to realize recovery is not really a group thing; it's an individual thing. The group can help you and support you by allowing you to be around people that don't use, and that's a safe environment, and allowing you to vent your frustrations or talk about whatever's going on in your life. But I've also seen groups that have shunned homosexuals, you know, and I've had to fire them up and say, you know, the only requirement to be here is a desire to stop using. Sexual preference really has nothing to do with it. Here's a person that's hurting, and you're going to tell them you can't identify because they're gay. You know, they're talking about wanting to use a drug. Their homosexuality ain't got nothing to do with it. You know, so I didn't write your traditions, and I didn't write those steps, but I sure as hell know. I know in my heart, and I will make you honor what you say you believe. Yes, and if you believe that your requirement to be here is a desire to stop using, then you don't have a right to treat this person like an outcast. I know a guy that had like 9 years clean, and he was gay. And they flat took in his face. They couldn't relate to him. And he went out and used that night. Went out and got some dope and got high. And I wish I had been at that meeting, because I'm a stickler for you. If you say you believe something, if you say these steps are for the individual, and the traditions are for the group, and the traditions are what hold the group together, I'll make you honor tradition. I'll tell you, if you're not going to honor it, don't preach about it then. Because you're talking out both sides of your mouth. Now, since I don't go to a lot of meetings, there are groups that ostracize me and saying, well, you don't come around anymore. And I said, well, you know, it tells you in your basic text and in your big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, that at some point in time you will have a spiritual awakening. And the closer I get to God, the less I need of you. My 12-step meeting is with Him now, the source, who took away the addiction. You didn't take it away. You just allowed me to find a system that will help me stay off the dope. I said, but I've found the system that keeps me off the dope, and that's my Creator. I said, you can't sit there and dictate to me what God's plans are for me. When I'm in His will, I'm doing exactly what He wants me to do. Whether you agree or disagree doesn't matter. Bottom line is, I'm not high. Well, you're not in the meeting either. I said, when I'm supposed to be there, I'll show up. So when you see me walk through the door, you know I'm there. And then anymore, they say something about it, I just kind of blow them off and keep on doing what I'm doing. Because it's not important. I mean, I still like to go for the fellowship, and sometimes I feel like I should go in case a beginner comes through the door. so I can introduce myself and say, hey, my name is John, I'm an alcoholic. Or if it's NA, hey, my name is John, I'm an addict. And I'm so very glad that you made the decision to come tonight, and I hope you stay. At least stay long enough until the miracle begins to happen. In case you haven't figured it out, the miracle happened when you started walking through, when you made the decision to come through that door. I've seen a lot of my friends come into recovery, seen a lot of my friends that didn't come because they died. I think the closer you get to God, the less you need the 12-step program. That's just my own personal opinion. There are some people who say, well, I'll need it till the day I die. And if they believe that, they probably will need it. And I'm not putting the program down because it works. What I am saying is that I'm now in a position where I don't have to go to a meeting. I go because I want to go. In the beginning, I had to go. It was either go to the meetings or go back out and do the same thing, and the same thing I was doing before, and Lord knows I was tired of that, so I went to the meetings. In the first 8 years of my recovery, I went to a lot of meetings, but the last 3 years of my recovery, I've been to very few meetings. But I found that if you go to the source from which your help comes, then you don't have to go to the meeting. The source is God. God invented the 12-step program. It's His gift to man. So now I deal with Him one-on-one. He keeps me clean. I asked Him to remove the obsession. I asked Him to remove the addiction. He did. Now I must believe that He will keep it removed.
I've been wondering about Muncie, like in Fort Wayne. While there are a lot of white cocaine addicts and a lot of black alcoholics, it seems like at the NA meetings it's predominantly black, and at the AA meetings it's predominantly white. And like particular white cocaine addict I know, he feels uncomfortable going to the NA meetings, and I wonder if there's a segregation like that in Muncie.
Yeah, you'll see more people of color in the NA meetings than you will in AA meetings. What the addict must realize is the addiction doesn't discriminate. So don't walk in that meeting looking for black people. Walk in that meeting looking for other addicts trying to get better.
But then it's the opposite too. Whereas I just wondered if it was similar here. So
and this is a misconception a lot of addicts have. They go in and say, well, I'm gonna walk in and see how many blacks are here. I'm gonna walk in and see how many whites are here. When you walk in there with that attitude, you're defeating your reason for being there.
Well, then they don't go.
True.
And so then.
And if you don't go to meetings, how are you gonna stay clean?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go to meetings, at least go to church. Find a church to go to. But the bottom line is, don't isolate yourself, because an addict in isolation who is new in recovery will use. He or she just will. Well, when I first started going to AA 11 years ago, there weren't that many blacks there. But I wasn't there for the black people. I was there for me. And I also knew that the whites wasn't going to run me out of the meeting. So.
I just wonder how common that is in this country.
When I went to Ireland, I was the only blacks in an AA meeting. But their comment was, "Welcome, brother." We had coffee and we sat around and talked for an hour. That's the neatness of the program itself. That when it's practiced in its entirety, that the love is unconditional, and the acceptance is for real. I don't have time to worry about how many blacks are or are not in a meeting, because I'm not there to do a racial survey. I'm there to learn how to stay clean and stay sober. And that's the bottom line. If they have to go in and be focused on the reason for being there, rather than go in and see who is there. Who is there is not important. That's why you will hear more so than not, listen to the message and not the messenger. Because a messenger may be somebody that you don't like, but their message may save your behind. And oftentimes in recovery, it is the very person that you don't like who will help you. And there's been a lot of people in recovery that didn't like me when I first came around, because I'm very opinionated about a lot of things, and I was that early on in recovery, and I still am to a degree. The difference today is I can speak out of experience. Then I was just speaking to be speaking, because I had an opinion. You know, it's always nice to have somebody say, well, you know, I heard you speak in a meeting and you said some things that I could identify with, you know, and you helped me out quite a bit. You know, and I'm a straight shooter. When I'm in a meeting and I'm talking about the disease of addiction, I'm not going to pull punches. I'm not going to candy coat it. You know, if you're in there and you want to half step or act a fool, I'll just tell you straight to your face. You ain't nothing but a drunk. You ain't nothing but an addict. You ain't no better than nobody in this room. We're all on the same level. When we walk through the door, we're all addicts. If it's your first time here, you really don't have a whole lot to say because you don't have any experience in recovery. You got a whole lot of experience in addiction. So if you're gonna say something, talk about your addiction. You know, if you got a problem, speak up. But if you try and talk out of experience and talk about recovery, you don't know nothing about recovery. Shut your mouth. Learn. They told me shut up, and I kept talking anyway. But then I began to listen. I didn't shut my mouth till somebody hurt my feelings. And a lot of it had to do with a nurse in rehab. You'll never stay clean. You won't get 6 months. In 6 months, I laughed in her face. At 9 months, I laughed in her face again. At 1 year, I blew her off, and that made her mad. And she told me, she said, you know, you pissed me off. I said, well, you pissed me off when I was in here. And I said, but it worked, didn't I? I said, I'm still clean. And I said, thank you. That's one thing I discovered about myself. Tell me I can't do something.